This Week in Startups is brought to you by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com. And Design Crowd, best custom graphic, logo, and web designs for your business. Get $100 off your design project at designcrowd.com/twist or enter promo code TWIST. Our iTunes review of the week is from Boggs NYC. Jason brings to bear his experience as an entrepreneur and investor to deliver an insightful, compelling, timely, and timeless look at the startup ecosystem.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of This Week in Startups. We are going to do another jam session. What's a jam session? Well, we do these every couple of months, and it's a very simple concept. We bring together people who are experts at something. Let's say growing a company, like today's topic. Every company needs two things, money and growth. That's what I hear from all of my portfolio companies over and over and over again. Hey, can you give us more money? Hey, can you teach us how to grow faster? And obviously these two things work together. Well, what we're going to do today is have three speakers who are not going to teach you how to raise money. They're going to teach you how to make money and grow your startup. Today's episode is curated by my partner in crime, Brian Alvey. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks.
So tell us, Brian, who came today? Who did you select to speak? Give us a brief overview. And in plain English, not buzzword bingo, but in plain English, tell us what they are going to talk about.
Thanks. So we have three great speakers. One of them has been at our conferences before.
Sure.
Casey Winters. He's worked with some giant startups that you've heard of.
Sure.
Maybe they're not even startups anymore. Pinterest is one of them. Now he advises a bunch of startups talking about growth. And his talk is about landing pages and all the free search traffic that you're missing out on. And if you think you know everything about landing pages, then you're wrong. And we'll cover all that. Yeah,
landing pages are important because you can optimize them, and just making 2 or 3 changes to them, you could make those 2 or 3 things 10, 20% better, and all of a sudden they're that much more effective. When you're buying traffic to come to them, it's important because you're spending money to get people to that landing page.
Correct, and I've already got questions for him, and he may cover them during the talk.
All right, who are our other 2 speakers?
The next one, Sue Kwan. She has worked with a bunch of things that aren't startups at all, Gap Inc. and Symantec. Right now works with a startup, Honor, and also advises companies. And she has a background in working with TV newsrooms.
Okay.
So she's going to talk about how to run your startup's marketing department like a TV newsroom.
Got it.
And I know a little bit about it. I've still got some questions myself for me.
Fantastic. That's our second talk, Sue Kwan. And who's our third talk?
David McIntosh. So he has a GIF search company that powers a lot of famous GIF keyboards, things like that. Knows a lot about that. One of his secret tricks, or not so secret tricks, is they are blazingly fast. And when you make things fast and you make changes that are like that, you can compound and you get a flywheel effect. He's going to talk about growth and specifically about making growth decisions that compound, so they kind of run away like a flywheel exponentially instead of slow linear growth.
Each of these talks are about 8 to 12 minutes, typically?
Typically, yeah.
Okay, and then we'll have a little time for question and answer after, so we can punch it up. So let's start and welcome Casey Winters back to the program. How are you doing, Casey?
Doing well, thanks, Jason.
All right, you have the floor.
All right, awesome. So thanks, Brian, as well. I'm here to talk about using landing pages to capture all the free search traffic you may be missing out on. So, a lot of people might be saying, do I need search traffic? Does SEO make sense for me? And what you have to think about is SEO is one of a few channels that can provide real scale. Everyone wants to grow viral. I'm sure, Jason, you have every startup you advise want to grow viral. But not every startup can. And SEO is another great way to drive traffic to really grow your startup if you can't do that. So the first question you should be asking is, can I get search engine traffic? Does it make sense for me? And it's not an am I an app or a website question. If you're an app and there's a lot of people searching for what you do, go build some landing pages and get that traffic. What you really want to be asking is, are people searching for what I do? And is it competitive when people search for that? So that if I tried to rank for these certain terms that match what I do as a service, can I reasonably expect to rank? So I have a 2x2 up here, and for those listening at home, the basic gist is the space that I play in for Google competitive or not competitive? And is there a high amount of search volume for the topic that my business is in, or a low amount of search volume? And what you're hoping for is that there is a lot of search volume for what you do, but it's not competitive. This is getting rarer and rarer as more and more startups form. So it tends to happen when an audience starts to come online for the first time, like in emerging markets, or if it's a brand new technology that starts to get adoption very quickly. That said, that's not the only one of these boxes where SEO is interesting. If you have a low amount of search volume, but it's also not competitive, then it can be interesting to own the few searches that you get and get that incoming traffic, and then start to move into higher search volume categories, which typically rely on something like content marketing, because you are trying to expand into the broader industry conversation, things that are less specific to I do this right now, but more associating yourself with an area. If you happen to be in one of those industries where there's a lot of search volume, but it's very competitive, like real estate, for example, it's not a reason to dismay, but for startups who are trying to get something that's working in like a couple weeks or a month, it's more of a long-term strategy. You can't expect to try and compete with Zillow and outrank them in 6 months as a new startup. So you have to play for the long game, and you have to make SEO and landing page strategy really a core competency of the company. When you look at companies like Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, and in a competitive space like real estate, almost their entire company is geared around how they can rank better on Google. The PR team focuses a lot on it. The rest of the marketing team focuses a lot on it, and as well as the engineers, designers, product managers. And that's the type of environment you would have to have. So I don't recommend it for startups, but long-term, very interesting. And of course, if it's a competitive space and no one's searching for it, let your competitors waste their time trying to impress Google. You move on to something else. All right, so the question you should be asking is like, well, how do I know if it's competitive, and how do I know if a lot of people are searching for what I do? For something like Pinterest, Pinterest has content on thousands of different topics, and this is a really hard question to answer. So what we actually did is we looked at what people were searching for on the Pinterest search engine, and then we said, hey, let's look and see if people are searching for those same topics on Google, and if so, can we create landing pages for them? Grubhub might be a better example. So when I worked there, we had to figure out, are people searching for what Grubhub did, which is food delivery, and if so, could we rank? So to answer that question, we tried to say who, what, when, where, and how for our business to answer what kind of keywords people would type in. So here's kind of an example. For those of you listening, who would be obviously the brand, Grubhub, or people searching for it, but also every restaurant that Grubhub covers. The what is all the things that Grubhub does. So food, delivery, every type of cuisine, menus, reviews. When would be any type of time-related keyword that people might be using. So in the case of food-related stuff, it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and late night. And then geography, part of the where, it was super important for Grubhub. So not just San Francisco, but the neighborhoods like Soma, the colleges like UCSF, the zip codes like 94107, typing all of those in. And then how is usually technology. So in the case of Grubhub, that's online ordering, mobile apps. This tends to not play a big role in keyword, in understanding what keywords are being typed in consumer-based businesses, but in B2B, this actually gets a lot more of the attention. So what you do is you do this brainstorm answering these 5 questions for your business. You kind of mash all of these words together in Excel, and then you go to the Google Keyword Planner and you see, are people actually searching for this, and is it competitive? So this is what the actual Google Keyword Planner is. It's just a giant form. You paste in all of the keywords that you want to see if people are searching for, and then you hit Get Search Volume, and it will tell you average monthly search volume over the last 12 months for all of these terms. A question I get when I tell people about this is like, what's a lot of searches? And it depends on the business and how high your lifetime value is, but hundreds of searches is not a lot. Hundreds of thousands is a ton, to give you kind of a rough estimate. So you figured out if people are actually searching for these terms. Now you have to figure out, how do I actually rank for them? And the first thing you need to understand is, going back to the 2x2, is it competitive or not? And so what I recommend is take some of the top queries that you saw returned from the Google Keyword Planner, go into Google yourself, type them in, and just see what the results look like. And what you're looking for is, are there really good landing pages that are already showing up for them? And that's kind of the short answer, if it's competitive. The long answer is, are the pages there relevant and authoritative? So Google algorithm, it basically has 2 main components. They look at how relevant your landing page is to what's being searched, but they also look at how authoritative your page is compared to other pages that are relevant. And authority is mostly driven by who's linking to you. I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm just going to talk about the relevance side, but it is an important component to think of.
Let me just take a quick moment to thank Scott Ed Walker and the Walker Corporate Law Group for supporting This Week in Startups. The Walker Corporate Law Group is a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs and startups, and I've personally known Scott for a long time, and a lot of my angel investments use him as their attorney and speak incredibly highly of him. The Walker Corporate Law Group encourages fixed fees, which they believe really helps startups, and I know it does because you don't get that surprise when you get your bill every month. And they believe, actually, at the Walker Corporate Law Group that billable hours reward inefficiency. They want to get things done, and they want to get it done quickly and efficiently for you. Keep those billable hours actually reasonable so that you can grow your startup and put the capital where it belongs in the product. All of their lawyers have decades of experience. There's no junior associates getting on-the-job training, and they provide tons of services, including M&A, licensing agreements, terms of services, and privacy policies. If you want to talk to the founder himself, Scott Ed Walker, you can call him directly at 415-979-9998. That's 415-979-9998, 979-9998, or you can email him directly, Scott at Walker Corporate Law. Scott at Walker Corporate Law, and you just put in the subject line, Jason sent me. And you can visit walkercorporatelaw.com, and you can follow Scott at Scott Ed Walker on the Twitter. Thanks, Scott, for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups.
So let's say you're like, okay, there's search volume here. It's not too competitive. I think I can rank. I need to actually create these landing pages so that I can start ranking. Most people's next instinct is to create these pages and then write a bunch of content or write a blog to rank for this stuff. And it's actually not what I recommend. So, and I've actually never done it in my career, even though I've worked on multiple businesses that are driving tons of traffic via SEO. So there's kind of a hierarchy that I like for considering how to create content for landing pages. The first is using supply-side automation. Now, what does that mean? So let's say you're Grubhub, and you're now working with, I don't know, it's been a while since I've worked there. I think they're working with 50,000 restaurants. But when I started, they were working with a few hundred. So you have these restaurants, you have their menu data, you have where they deliver, you have basically all this information that's probably not been aggregated before. So what you do is you say, okay, I want to rank for Nob Hill Chinese food. You take all the restaurants that deliver to Nob Hill and that serve Chinese food. You put them on a page and you have all this unique metadata that Google probably hasn't seen before because no one's aggregated this information. And then you build it in a way that you can automate it for any of those combinations that get search volume. So if it's Soma Thai, Nob Hill Chinese, Potrero Hill Indian, you have all this data and you build the technology in a way where you're creating the same template type of page, but it's sucking in the most appropriate restaurants and their most appropriate metadata so it looks relevant. So that's kind of my favorite technique for creating landing pages at scale. The second is using user-generated content. So at Grubhub, once we had built those pages, we started asking the people who were ordering from those pages to review those restaurants and how good they were. And then we just take the most relevant reviews and also put them on that page. So that's more unique, relevant content related to the topic. Now, well below this is option 3 for creating a great landing page that will rank, and that's writing your own content. Doesn't mean you'll never do it, and in B2B, you typically have to move to this option a lot earlier because you're not necessarily going to get data from your customers that you can use, and you're not going to have a volume of people that write content, or in the case of Pinterest, submit content to create pages. But these are kind of the 3 ways that you need to get that relevance that's super important for ranking. So what are the results from me working on this for a few businesses? So for Grubhub, built these landing pages and quickly got to the #1 ranking in key food delivery terms in most cities. So I'm gonna jinx myself here, but if at home you go type in San Francisco food delivery, Grubhub probably ranks #1 to this day. Whatever, type any city you're in the United States, it probably ranks #1. And this is not doing a lot of work. This is very simple, taking the business that you're already doing, which is aggregating restaurants that do delivery, and then just exposing it to Google in a way that it understands. So this results in probably more now, but at the time, 20% of new users coming for free via this tactic, which was not a lot of engineering work. And Grubhub, we raised very small amounts of money in the early days. We needed this free traffic. We didn't have a lot of money to spend on growth. So how about Pinterest? So slightly different. Pinterest, we're aggregating pins that have the most repins on a topic onto a page. So you have woodworking ideas is your topic. We take all the pins that are related to woodworking that have the most repins, we aggregate them on the page. We launched this in 2014. In 1 year, went from 0 to 20% of our traffic from search engines in 1 year. And we're talking about millions of visits a day at Pinterest scale. So this is hugely meaningful. What was also interesting about this strategy is that these pages converted into signups better than any of the other pages that were ranking on Google because they were super relevant for what people were searching for. So with the remaining time, I'll just show you very quickly for those that are watching the video what these pages look like and how simple they are. So this is Grubhub's Nob Hill Chinese page. And what you notice is the page is very focused on conversion because what Grubhub needs is to get you your actual address so they can show you what actually delivers to you. And you can see it's just very simple stuff. Hey, it says Nob Hill Chinese restaurants right here. It tells you how Grubhub works right here. That's the page that most people see. But if you continue to scroll on that page, you start to get into more meaty relevant stuff. So this is the list of all of those Nob Hill Chinese restaurants. You see there's more relevant text here about Chinese food delivery. You see there's social proof here for the people that weren't excited to type in their address. It helps get over the hump. And this is the type of page that ranks super well. It's just got relevant content. And you'll look at the Soma Thai page, and it'll look exactly the same. It'll just have a different set of restaurants. And that framework scales. Pinterest, very similar. So this is a landing page on James Turrell, a famous artist. And we've aggregated all of the best pins that we have on James Turrell's artwork. And we've linked to related topics up above, other artists that do similar work or light installations, which is what James Turrell is famous for. And as you scroll on this page, what Pinterest is trying to do is get you to sign up. So it says there's more of this content to see and you need to log in or sign up to see it. And then if you continue to scroll, we'll block you from scrolling any further and ask you to sign up to continue going. And this is the basic strategy. It's not super hard. Lots of other startups do it, but it's something that definitely seems to be under leveraged in the startups that I talk to.
Awesome. Well done. So, Brian, questions?
I have a lot of questions. So, it's fantastic talk. This is great. On the last jam session we had somebody who said basically don't blog, like don't try to blog every day.
Yeah.
But every 3 months, take amazing, rich, proprietary data that only your startup has.
Yep.
Put that into a report, hype the crap out of it, put it all over TV. You'll get picked up everywhere, right?
Yep.
It's really cool because it's a unique, special thing that you have. There's this thing here that you have. And you said pretty much the same thing, which was we're going to take this very unique data that we have. Google hasn't seen this page we just generated before.
Yep.
This is their first time seeing it. They're going to love it, eat it up. It's going to go to the top. So you work with a variety of startups. How do you kind of go into each of them and help them mine that stuff out to do that? And then my second question is going to be tactically, do the landing pages come out of their system itself, or do they go and get like a WordPress or a HubSpot or some kind of a landing page system?
Yeah, I'll tackle the second question first,
Great.
Which is, do you kind of use third-party software to build these, or do you kind of build them in-house? And in most cases, it's actually just easier to build this in-house. There are definitely tools you can use to build landing pages. There are some challenges with regards to SEO in terms of can you fully integrate that into your site, not have it on a subdomain or something like that, not have it on separate IPs to indicate that it's really your site. So if you're getting a bunch of press to your homepage, it will help these pages rank or not. So that's something to consider about using a third party. Grubhub, we had very few engineers, and we were able to whip this up. It's one of the few engineering resources I did get. So it's not that hard to build yourself. So I generally recommend just do it the way you want the first time. And then it'll scale with, hey, my marketing person wants to add a new page for, Los Angeles Thai places. I don't need to kind of see if, this third-party thing supports that or whatever, or pay them more money, whatever. So I recommend building in-house. In terms of trying to find that unique data set for your startup, like I said, not everyone's going to have it. But typically, marketplaces are, if you're running a marketplace, you typically have a lot of interesting data from the supply that you're generating that because no one else is working with that supply, they don't have. And what you have to figure out is there a way that you can match the unique data that you have to what people are searching for, and there's a match in terms of interest versus the data you have. So I think one of the examples that came to mind, which you just said, is Thumbtack. So Thumbtack works with probably hundreds of thousands of contractors and local professionals in lots of different spaces. And what they did was they surveyed the people that they were sending jobs to about the local economy and how their business was going. And then they aggregated that into a report. They obviously sent it out to press, but that data set was actually on all of their landing pages when you searched for, like plumber in Soma. And that helped them rank. It helped attract links to that page, which helps switch authority. And so you have to do kind of that brainstorming and see what works out. I'm sure not day one when they were launching that business where they're like, I know what we're going to do. We're going to survey all these pros that we don't have yet, and that's how we're going to rank. But you try a few things and you figure out something, that I'm sure we'll learn more about what resonates with press, things that resonate with users. You try a few out, and typically it becomes pretty obvious pretty soon.
On those landing pages, SEO-wise,
Yeah.
is there a danger to making too many of them, to flooding Google with tens of thousands of terms? How do you know I should do 100, I should do 1,000, I should do 10,000? When should I stop? When is it too many?
So there absolutely is. And eBay a couple of years ago ran into trouble with this. I think they were creating on the order of tens of millions of new types of pages targeting very, very specific queries. And they were so effective at it that they were ranking like number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for a lot of the same terms. And obviously Google isn't happy with that. And they got penalized for this, and they missed their quarter in the public markets. A lot of people get fired. It was messy. So what I recommend is start small. Start with pages you're really confident, like keywords you're really confident you can deliver a great experience for. Create a handful of pages. Tweak them, make sure they work, make sure you're getting progress on them, and then start to slowly ramp up. So, at Pinterest, we started with maybe a few thousand, and that's a drop in the bucket for Pinterest because Pinterest already has billions of other pages that are indexed by Google. But we started small, and then kind of as we proved out that these pages are valuable to Google and valuable to the users that are seeing them, we started maybe on order doubling the amount every month, maybe less than that. So now there's a ton of them, but it started out very small.
Should you use a consulting firm, like an SEO consulting firm, or there are these people who hit every startup up $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month. We guarantee you're going to be here, and they do some black art, magic, alchemy to get you there. It always seems like they do something a little fugazi. Or is it something where you just have to commit as a team to educating yourself, doing Google searches to figure out how SEO works today, and build that discipline in-house?
Yeah.
And how long does it take to learn, in 2017, how to build effective pages? Because SEO changes every year or so, you'd say, every 6 months or so, and it changes radically every 3 or 4 years, I think.
Yep.
So how long should it take for a team to figure this out?
Yeah. So to tackle the first question, I face palm whenever I see those emails. Because most of these people have no idea what they're talking about, and they can't really help startups, and they don't understand how to help startups. So what I recommend people that think SEO might be a good growth strategy for them is look, put an engineer and a PM on it, and just start working on obvious best practices to do, get that straightened out, and then after that, if anyone's telling you that they know what to do next, they know what the best thing is, they're usually lying. You scale from there by experimenting and learning how Google responds uniquely to your content. And for a site like Pinterest, where it's mostly images, what Google wants from us is more text helping us understand what the page is about, right? But for Quora, adding more text next to an answer that's already 5,000 words long is not going to help them, right? So it's not like the same strategy works across companies.
What's the lag time? How long does it take before you implement
Yeah.
the PM and the engineer and you say, hey, start working on this, put a quarter of your time into it for the next 90 days? When would you start seeing results? I mean, I know it depends on how competitive it is, but when would somebody reasonably in a moderately competitive group see some results?
Yeah. So what I say is if you're starting from scratch, it's probably going to take 3 to 6 months to start seeing a return.
So it's an investment.
So it's definitely an investment, which is why I say if it's competitive early on, probably not the best for an early stage startup to go after. Paid or virality might be a better thing to get rolling on. And then once you have that, weave in SEO as kind of a second channel. And then in terms of building up some expertise as your team, so I came into Pinterest having done this before at Grubhub, but most of the rest of the team hadn't. And when I talked to them about hey, how long did it take you to really feel like you understood what you were doing? The average that I heard was it took about 6 months to wrap their head around it. So, coming in, you're a blind PM or engineer, you've never worked on this before, you just start executing some stuff that you've read like, oh, I need to have a landing page that matches what people are searching for, and oh, I probably should have a unique title tag, kind of basic stuff like that, to saying like, oh, I'm building an intuitive understanding of what my startup needs to do to help Google and its users. That usually is about a 6-month journey.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to have a couple of more talks coming up when we get back from this important break. Visit designcrowd.com/twist and save up to $100 on your design project. If you don't know, designcrowd.com is a place where it's a marketplace, and you put up what you want to design, and a bunch of designers go compete and build you a great logo, designs for your website, etc. And they've got over 500,000 registered designers from around the world. It works really simple. You post a brief, hey, here is what I'm looking for, and you'll receive 60 to 100 different designs or more. And you then provide feedback, and you get changes, so you can go back and forth, and then you select the best design and approve payment to that designer. And if this all sounds scary, like, oh my God, I've never done it before, don't worry, there's a money-back guarantee, and I did it for my website, calacanis.com, and for $500, we received over 350 designs. I'm not sure you're going to receive 350. I did tweet it, so maybe you'll receive 60 to 100, but it was amazing. We got a ton of great icons and illustrations and portraits and bulldogs. You can go see it if you go do a search over there. And you can help me select the winning design by voting at designcrowd.com/twist. Their other clients include Harvard Business School, the old HBS, Virgin, HTC, Absolute Vodka, Amnesty International, which was my first job out of school, and over 100,000 other small businesses. So here's your call to action, everybody. Go to designcrowd.com/twist and save up to $100 on your design project. Give it a shot. You're going to love it. I guarantee it. Designcrowd.com/twist, and you'll get $100 off. I guarantee it, but I don't have to guarantee it because they guarantee it. It's got a money-back guarantee. Design Crowd, it works. It's awesome. Go ahead and visit at Design Crowd. Oh, go ahead and follow them on Twitter too, at Design Crowd. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. It's our jam session produced by my good friend Brian Alvey. Brian, who's up next?
Sue Kwan.
And what is she going to speak about?
She's going to reach back into her fantastic television news background and explain to startups how you can run your marketing department like a TV newsroom. There are a lot of things that a TV newsroom does. There are a lot of things that you have to do when you have a story breaking right now that you have to report on in an hour on camera. That are actually not that different from what founders go through, having to quickly tell their story, and they have no money to do it and no time.
Awesome. So. Sue, make us smarter.
And you know what? You'd be amazed to find that the cultures are very similar too. You have collaborative groups, you're working fast, you're trying to hit deadlines, there's no time for politics, there's no time to have big spend on wrong decisions. If you make mistakes, you change it fast. So I thought this is a great way to kind of frame up. I'm going to kind of blend the word PR with marketing, with Marcom, with comms, because basically if you're telling a story to an outside audience, to employees, to potential investors, it is communications, right? So let's just define it that way to start. I wanted to also paint the picture of then and now. Some of you may remember or may have grown up watching TV news and newspapers, magazines, the whole ecosystem's different. I don't need to say that. Obviously, we have a lot more digital channels. We have social media. We have some traditional media outlets, especially in this current climate, that are actually getting a bit of a boost. So back then, 20 years in the business, we had time to research. Outlets would call me to pitch their wares. As a business, you had to have your pitch fully ready. When you engage with a reporter, that story was fact-checked over a course of 24 hours. If it was a long lead, 48 hours. And then after a reporter turned the story, you'd all hang out at the old ship saloon after, have beers, and start over the next day. And this is literally what's happening in large markets the size of San Francisco. News breaks 24/7. Reporters produce stories with fewer resources. They have shorter deadlines. They're racing to beat social media posts and people who may not have reporter training but are amazing storytellers and have a phone or have the insight or sources, and they also may not have editors that they have to check with, right? So you have this kind of brand new race, new ecosystem. Content was also distributed within seconds, and reporters were always on. So what that means is that you need to have your story pitch perfect. And to do that, you need to think about these 3 steps. Create a story that already answers the questions, what are you doing or making, and why does it matter? tell that story on multiple channels already, not just in a release, but in a blog, a video, a modern release where it can be found in search. And I'll go back to what Casey was saying earlier. It's really important that you are thinking about where you're driving people to. You're, in most cases, driving people to your landing page. So those press releases have to speak as if you're leading them to that landing page. Mash up PR and marketing and sales, bring them into the mix so that your efforts in PR and comms are reaching the right audience at the right place at the right time, whether it's on web, email, newsletter, or even a speaking event. So you really have to change the way that you engage with each other in a company, in a startup, and you also have to change the way you see the media. The media is not what you see on TV anymore, not the CNN live shot or that planned coverage, right? So I put in there, stop the press release spamming, because that is a very, very quick way to say, yeah, I'm doing PR, but it's not necessarily the best way to be doing it. You gotta stop thinking the old way and start thinking the new way. The new way basically meaning we as a company have to produce our own news in some cases. We have to engage in real-time news. We called it newsjacking. We have to be part of these news cycles, and not just when we wake up in the morning, but where the sun is rising all over the world. And then we also have to understand that journalists are not just about top-tier New York Times. These are the bloggers, these are the influencers, potential employees. So you have to treat everyone equally and not in some sort of crazy hierarchy, because you can have a New York Times reporter with 50 followers, and then you can have a mommy blogger who has millions of followers. After you have your pitch and your story, you need to start acting like a newsroom. Create content with the audience in mind. And as a founder or as a person who's running in a startup, you're kind of in a fishbowl. You think you know what your story is and what your product is doing because you're in that world. You have to start talking to your neighbors, your parents, your friends, and asking them what they think your product or service is and how it applies to their lives. So prioritize and plan your content pegged to the headlines. That basically means creating an editorial calendar. It means knowing, if you're in e-tail, that there's Black Friday coming up, or knowing that after Black Friday there's going to be reports on cyber hacking or cybersecurity at the point of sale, right? So have your story pitches ready for what you know might hit in the headlines. So those daily beat checks happen early in the morning, 6 a.m. East Coast time, and they stay all the way through UK, EMEA, Asia, and Latin America. You want to make sure your company is always aware of those headlines hitting at any given time of the day, and produce that news you can use. Now, this is a content, Casey, that you kind of referred to a little about, that thought leadership, the really rich content that drives people to want to know more. That type of content as a company, if you're producing that, then you can warrant inviting someone into your landing page, right? Invite them in to actually come to a fun party, and don't trick. They'll come once and they'll never come back. Master the art of the cold open. And basically what a cold open in the news is when you hear the announcer saying, coming up in 5 minutes, the air you breathe can kill you. We'll tell you why, right? It's that thing that snags you to say, what? You know, I'm doing that, or I need that. And so if you're pitching a product or service, you need to come out in a cold open, which is usually the first 8 seconds of your pitch, whether it's a release, a video, or announcement, on why. So the water skiing squirrel happens in every single local market. If you watch TV news, you'll know what that is. If you watch some of the spoofs of TV news, you'll know what that is. Don't take yourself too seriously. Come up with the content that people are talking about at the dinner table, at the water cooler, and give your company, your startup, a personality. So when you act like a TV newsroom, you have to structure the team, and that's so that they can crush those deadlines on a tight budget. If you don't have the right setup, then you can have amazing talent and still not be able to achieve your goals. So what I did on the left-hand side of the slide, for those of you who can see, is I put all the main roles in a newsroom: the art department, the promo department, editorial, photography, traffic, and audience. And I basically put the parallel function that you probably have in your startup. Even if they don't have those titles, you have Swiss Army knife people who know how to do these things. So your design team, they can work on the prezos, the web content, the CX customer assets. Social media team, they act like a promo department, pitching and distributing your content, getting engagement with the community. You have your storytellers, which are the editorial team. Thought leaders and executives. I want to call that out because more and more executives have to be the front person, right? The person that's at events, he or she will be blogging, writing op-eds, doing social media commentary on behalf of the company. So the storytellers, the anchormen and women of your company are your executives. I cannot stress that enough. Most startups don't have a budget to hire spokespeople. Some companies should find budget. If you have, for example, a high-end fashion line or something, you might want a model. SEO and analytics, those customer journey gurus who really know what the customer is doing on that customer journey map, having them help you understand what content they see that leads them to the landing page. So if Casey and I work together, we would sit next to each other, right? I would want to make sure that I'm creating releases, messages, and content that's getting people to the places he wants them to go. And then customer care, that is that team that really understands the audience. So I really don't think that these days PR can run in a silo anymore, and that's why I really don't like funnel images, because it shows you that it's some sort of handoff where PR drops in at the top and then the machine does its thing. That's not how it works. All of those bubbles plus more have to work together in integrated communications. So you probably have heard that key phrase, integrated communications. It basically means that everyone participates in your startup newsroom, not just PR. And that's so that you can really understand what the goals are of sales and of marketing and of your leadership team. If you're early on and it's a startup, you also have your brand to consider. So usually that requires breaking down silos, because people will come in saying, I own this, right? And they want to just run off and do their things and pitch and come back with these amazing results. That's not really how it works. If you have somebody come in who is a PR practitioner or a marketing practitioner who wants to do this type of outreach, they have to understand how you need to build as you go with the team. And you also need tools to help you make those strategic decisions. Because the industry, and you go back to my first slide that showed, has shifted so much, it's no longer okay to just pitch the top 5 tech reporters or consumer reporters at the New York Times. That just does not work. Most of the reporters these days are contractors. So they got rid of a lot of the full-time employees because of the way the economics of that industry have gone, right? So you're going to find amazing writers who write for 2, 3, 4, 5 different publications. So you need to know where they are, and you need to know who they're reporting on. And the only way you can really make those great strategic decisions and tactical decisions is to have this. And that's just a lot of data, right? So these are 2 quick screenshots that I took from different tools I've used. It used to be called Radiant 6, part of Salesforce right now, and then TrendKite. You really need to see if what you're doing increases your share of voice and drives people to your landing page. So Casey, you're going to love that. See that blue bar graph on the lower right? The green line that's going up at the end shows a press release that came out along with blogs and videos, etc. That blue bar needs to be as close to that as possible in order for me to prove that my PR campaign worked,
Love
right? If it didn't, that just meant I just blew a press release out to the wind with not the right keywords, not the right messaging, and my friends see that I'm very busy, right? But it does not drive business. So, as you had mentioned, if it is right for you, you prioritize that content. You focus on the thought leadership, the storytelling, the message that's mapped to the customer journey. There's all sorts of terms for this, but whatever the blogs are calling it these days, you want to think about that content in a way that, does it add value and does it help me tell my story? So some quick, smart things you can do today is don't get overwhelmed. There are startups that run without PR, but if you're doing these things, then you can scale up and bring in a PR function. PR can be priced very high, and it's because people don't know how it works often, or you're sold a package, an agency package, right? So do these things first. See if you have enough in your company to start or create an editorial calendar so you can pitch and play around those events and trends. Think about the headlines that are hitting and how your company and your tech and services are relevant to it. So it's a really great exercise to think like that editor every morning you wake up when you're having your coffee. Just think about, how am I relevant today? Usually morning meetings in news organizations happen at 9 o'clock. If you have that aha moment, call them before 9 o'clock and pitch it, because you can get a day of coverage piece easier if you peg it to what's happening in that in that moment. You want to measure your share of voice. You want to report impact to everyone that was in that ecosystem. Execute with what you have in-house, so you don't have to go out and buy all this stuff. You have great writers, great social media practitioners, SEO gurus. Find out who wants to do more, and then pay for only what you don't have. And usually as a startup, what you don't have is lists, contact lists, reporter lists. And there's things like Cision, which cost thousands of dollars. There's Muckrack, which is like a Rolodex you pay to get into, and then you can hunt down reporters and their contact information, and you can create your own spreadsheets. Or do everything you possibly can in-house, and then negotiate with an agency on an hourly to get those lists made for you. And then how you know it's time to go from acting like a small market TV station to a cable news network, it's pretty much if everything you're doing is communications related and you have robust traffic to your site, content is really king and it's driving brand and sales, your company's growing, and you're actually in new markets, because the way, in case you probably know more about this than I do, the way that local is so important in search, you can't do one-size-fits-all PR for national. You have to do PR and keywords for every single local region you're in, which means backlinks to local landing pages and so on. That takes a lot of people and time. And if you also have a B2B, B2C audience that are hungry to cover you, you have to start kind of splitting and really pulling your PR strategy into two separate stories, two separate message maps, etc. That's how you can do effective PR that doesn't waste your time or money.
Awesome. Well done, Sue. Casey, I saw you were taking a lot of notes there, and you're an SEO landing page expert. What did you think of Sue's talk? And what were the notes you were writing? Because I see that she got your wheels turning. Because you work with communications and PR people at all these startups. How do these two groups work, SEO landing pages and PR marketing?
Yeah, so as someone coming from the more performance background, I usually say press is valuable for 3 reasons: driving investors, driving employees to want to join your startup, and driving links for SEO. So I'm always thinking about how we can create a story that press will pick up so that they will link to our site so they can rank better on Google, which a lot of what she talked about.
So that's PR for PR.
Yeah.
PR for page rank.
Yes.
Is what I would call that back in the day.
I'm going to take that from you.
PR for PR.
Yeah. So what I wrote down is kind of figuring out how to create those stories regularly, which is I think the biggest challenge for most startups is like, how can we be relevant in the news cycle? It's going so fast. How do I feel a part of it? So I wrote down some of those notes, and kind of a question I had was, how do you help startups figure out that story to tell? Most founders seem to be pretty bad at it when you start, and that's something that I've struggled with, and I don't come from that background, so I don't really know how to help.
I usually say, can I get 10 minutes with you? And then I just pummel the CEO with questions. And those are the questions that the viewers would have. It's like, why are you doing this? What is it solving for? What's the landscape? What's the problem you're solving for? And if they can't articulate that, then it's shocking that they got the money to do, right, what they're going to do. Usually they go right to what I'm doing, what I'm building, and how it's going to be epic, right? That's fine, but let's build it upside down. Start off with the why. What was the reason? And were you inspired by something? Were you trying to do something? And that's usually the story you tell to open up your keynote addresses.
Okay,
right?
So let me ask a question then.
Okay.
I like to put you on the spot.
Go for it.
Airbnb recently launched tours, local guides. You can pay them $100 to take you out for the evening or for the day and do tours. How would you create a PR marketing effort around that? If you had no PR people in the company, let's just pretend Airbnb was a 10-person company with one SEO person and one person who was a social blogger, copywriter, everything for the company. How would you promote most effectively the new Airbnb tours product?
There's so much focus right now. The problem that you're solving for in the landscape is that Airbnb is positioned or seen as some sort of competitor to hotels, like this outsider coming in to take your stuff, right? And then ruin neighborhoods. When really Airbnb is the gifter of experiences, where families can get together and share a summer before their son goes off to college. It is for that business person who doesn't want to eat the continental breakfast every day and at 4 o'clock wants to treat themselves to a tour of the Mission District. It is for the woman who's trying to say, what city do I move to next? How it feels to live somewhere and to go have coffee and that.
So you would pitch the human
You pitch
aspect.
the human side. And that goes back to the cold open, goes back to the water skiing squirrel, which goes back to people watch stories and engage with stories when they connect with the human being, when they connect with the human experience. It's about the human experience. So I have big data company CEOs coming to me and saying, how would you do this, right? And I come right back at them and say, okay, so you do big data to help banks figure out who to invest in, right? You're making America a strong economy. You are making it so that American business have their artificial
So tell that small individual story.
Right.
So I'll go to you, Casey, on the same question. Now you have to build the landing pages. We all work for the 10-person Airbnb, and we're doing our tours.
Right.
What's the first set of keywords you're going to go after in landing pages, and how do we build those, given that you have massively limited resources? I've given you a quarter of an engineer's time and however much time you want to put into it on the weekends on top of your existing workload.
Yeah. So I actually work with Airbnb. So this is
kind of
a tough
kind of
question.
scary.
Yeah, I can't talk about everything, but essentially, with trips, which I believe is what they call the product, you have to figure out, is there existing demand for walking tours of the mission or things like that?
Sure.
And if so,
probably not walking tours of the mission, but probably walking tours of Paris. Yes.
Yeah, potentially, right? So you have to figure out which of those are relevant from a search engine perspective, and which of those are going to have to create demand, which is going back to the storytelling, right? So for a lot of what Airbnb's initial product was, it was the demand for travel was there. It was too expensive, and people were going to get in the continental breakfast, which was not very exciting. So you have both a cheaper and a better option that you put yourself right next to Expedia, and you're cheaper and better, and you start to win, right?
Right, more unique as well.
Yeah, and in the end, they ended up being a lot more unique. With trips, I think in some cases there are searches for this types of thing, and you want to prioritize getting, if you're the one doing the walking tour of Paris, having a really great landing page that talks about why you're awesome, talks about how easy it is to book and how everything's set up for you. And then it's also super relevant, right? So it has a bunch of stuff about Paris on it, has a bunch of stuff about what you'll see, all of those things.
All the stops on the tours.
Yeah, and then a really easy to convert buy button as well, right? To make sure you actually get that conversion to happen.
Big email or submit your email or purchase button.
Exactly.
All right, Brian, any questions for Sue?
I have two quick ones. So I love newsjacking, right? Hijacking the news. And this is kind of the opposite of that talk we had last time, which was you can't blog every day, right? Every 3 months, generate a bunch of data, get a report, get in the news. But talking to Sue, she said, 5 days a week, you can wake up and look at the news at 6, 7 o'clock. You know today's headline. And you just have to get good at this. Every single day, try to insert your company into these things. You give like a sort of success story from newsjacking in your career where there was some oddball headline and some customer that nobody would ever see those as a match, but somehow you found a way to pull that story in those 10 minutes out of that founder to stick them on television or to get them
I have
a story.
Great story.
Okay.
I have a great one.
Let's hear it.
So it was CBS runs the Super Bowl, and there's all sorts of people who had these pools going on and so on. And then you have
Betting pools.
Yes, and Challenger Gray and Christmas puts out their productivity survey. So every year I'm like, how can I do this story differently? Because it was every year, Challenger Gray Christmas says there's going to be nobody working, no productivity, and then you go and you shoot people kind of quietly at their desk betting on the pools, and then we go back with CBS and say, watch the Super Bowl, right? And as a consumer reporter, I do that. So I Googled, I went on and I found Bay Area Artificial Intelligence Analytics Company, and I found this founder who was shocked because they didn't do PR, and I said, do you guys have a bunch of people sitting around just crunching numbers, and could you do an algorithm on who's going to win the Super Bowl? And he goes, we're already doing it. So I came over and I said, if you happen to have a party going on in your lunch break room, we'll shoot that. If you happen to have jobs open, we'll shoot that. And if you happen to be able to show me a little of your code and who's behind that, we'll shoot that. So he scrambled. People came in their jerseys. They already had a potluck ready, and we did a full piece on the hype in the Bay Area around the Super Bowl, and we pegged it to the startup that was getting in the spirit using artificial intelligence.
Wow.
And
Super
by the
Bowl,
way,
AI,
and hiring.
and hiring.
Job hiring. So it was a great
Amazing.
brand story for them, right?
Awesome. All right,
Okay,
when we get back,
our
our third
third
speaker
final
today
speaker
is David
on
McIntosh,
Stick with
and
us.
he is the CEO and co-founder of Tenor, and he is going to talk about speed and flywheels. It's important to go fast. David, make us smarter.
Great. Thanks for the introduction. Happy to be here. Most of you have probably heard about GIFs before, and you probably think that they're silly, fun, and perhaps even a little bit trivial. But underneath the surface, we've been able to grow this powerful search engine that now does more than 200 million searches per day. So I'm here to talk about how we got there, the growth insights behind that, and how you potentially can apply some of what we learned behind the science of GIFs to your business. So a couple of quick facts around Tenor. We're building this visual language for people to communicate thoughts and feelings. We launched the company about 2 years ago. In that period of time, we've gone from 0 to 200 million daily searches, over 1 billion daily GIF views. We're the top downloaded GIF sharing app on mobile, and it built the largest mobile GIF audience. And the way we think about growth is really around 3 things. First, what's the aha moment? So in the case of our product, it's really sending that perfect moment, that thought, that feeling that's stuck inside your head, commuting that tone to someone else. The second thing we think about is what's the speed to the aha moment? Now, in our case, it's a little bit subtle. It's not just that you got a GIF, it's that you got the right one. It's that you're able to quickly get there. It's that you didn't have to scroll through a ton of results to find that perfect thing. And often, this is kind of elusive because if we don't give you that perfect thing, you just won't send it at all. Now, the conversation will have moved on. You'll type a message to a friend, or perhaps you won't send anything at all. So getting that person to the aha moment is super critical. And then finally, we think about what are the compounding returns to improving that key experience. So you might ask you, okay, let's say we improve the likelihood that you get to that aha moment by 10%. You might think, okay, well, growth in general is going to increase by 10%. In fact, there's often a compounding return to improving that time to the key experience. So it's not just a 10% improvement, it's perhaps a 10% improvement compounded daily, or whatever the time period is in which people are using your product. And we often talk about how speed is essential. Now, in our case, it's not just speed at which the GIFs load. That is a very important factor. It's also the speed at which you're supposed to get to that perfect GIF. And you hear all the time people talking about speed's important, make your product as fast as possible. But whenever I heard that, I never heard anyone quantify that. I never saw any charts or graphs of someone saying, hey, this is the improvement I achieved in my product by speeding it up. And so we were very lucky to be able to capture at a moment in time the effective speed on our product. So this is graphing the various retention curves of our product, day 30, day 60, day 90, and how they trend over time. And there was this one period in time in which we made one particular change to the product, which was we implemented this new file format around GIFs, where we used all kinds of image recognition technology to compress them. So you had the same level of quality, but they were essentially a third more quick to load. And we made no other changes during this period of time. We're very lucky to have essentially a true test condition where no other changes were made. And so you see here the effect of that on this chart where I boxed out this area where we rolled out these faster GIF file formats, and we saw a 35% increase across the board in the product retention. And that's really important because retention is one of those other things that compounds. The more users that you retain, the more users share the product with other people, which means you add even more users to your product. So we saw a really substantial improvement in retention after that small speed improvement. And so some people might say, oh, you sped up the product by 33%. So what? Well, that 33% increase in the file format led to a 35% increase in retention, which snowballs every single day. And so when we think about applying these insights to a GIF integration, we've integrated into a bunch of different leading messengers, keyboard companies, everything from the Facebook messengers to the more recently the WhatsApps, the Twitters, the Kikas, the TouchPals. And there's really 3 things that come to mind when we do those integrations. One is we've already talked about speed. How do you deliver the fastest possible experience? And part of what you think about with speed is the different countries you operate under. So if someone's loading a Tenor experience, for example, in Southeast Asia, you need to think about speed a little bit differently than they're just accessing it inside the United States. The second thing we think a lot about is the search relevance. How do you get that perfect thing as fast as possible? We've found that the median session time in search for us is really short. It's in that 20 to 30 second range. And every second that goes on where a person hasn't shared, they become less and less likely to share. So that's a way for us to measure the search relevance. And when we do these integrations, we think a lot about how do we deliver the highest possible relevance experience. And then finally, we think about, okay, between the speed and the search relevance, where are those compounding returns to improving the key experience? We always like to think about not making incremental improvements to the product, but making incremental changes that result in compounding returns. Because it's really worth no one's time to do something that just increases something 10%. But if you can do something that increases and move the needle 10% every single day, then you end up a year from now with a double, a triple, a quadruple on your hands, which is worth the time. So in summary, you might think that GIFs are kind of the silly and fun thing, but there really are there is a really big science to it, and we've been able to demonstrate that with a focus on speed, relevance, you ultimately can produce compounding returns and really fast growth.
Okay, so when you look at a typical startup, how would you apply this to, say, my favorite startup, Uber? If you were the CTO of Uber or the product manager, I'm not sure where this speed obsession lives, what would be things they could work on, or maybe did work on, that would compound the product Uber, or an inferior product would Lyft?
Totally, yeah, and speed.
That's an inside joke, go ahead.
Speed is definitely something that I see them focusing on in terms of how fast is it for a car to get to your doorstep, right?
Right,
and if
wait time.
Wait time. And if you know that a Uber car is going to arrive there a minute faster than Lyft, or vice versa, let's say a Lyft car arrives a minute faster, you're probably going to use that service that gets the car to you faster. But then you see more subtle things happening with the Uber app, where what they're trying to do is prevent you from having even to type anything at all in Uber, right? So imagine that you have Uber and you have Lyft, and let's say Lyft figures something out where you don't have to type the address in at all. They magically figure out where you're going next. Perhaps they look at your contact address book. Perhaps they know it's 7 o'clock and you're heading home and they know where you live.
And in fact, it looks like Uber has done that. There are shortcuts that are contextual. So if I'm at my office, one of the shortcuts is home. If I'm at my home, the shortcuts are SFO, the airport here in San Francisco, or my office, or the Battery, which is probably the 3 most frequent locations I click.
Yep, exactly. And so that's something where over time, maybe the first time it doesn't matter that much, but the second, the third, the fourth time you get that Uber or that Lyft, in the back of your mind, you're starting to think, I don't have to type anything, because it's often really important to think about the context of mobile. When everyone's doing user testing, they think about a mobile session as you're sitting in front of your phone, right? And it's a perfect environment. Right. But often the environment is like when I was walking here. It was raining. I had an umbrella in one hand. I had my coffee in the other. I had my phone in my pocket. And so I had to struggle to take my phone out of the pocket. And I was saying, where's this address? I have to open Google Maps. And so you're often in a really bad environment. Or a lot of people are driving. They're driving in a car. Right? Think about the Uber driver. They're in their car. They're trying to get to the next address. And so being able to anticipate where the person is going, prevent them from even having to type in a keystroke, is super important. We've personally seen a lot of success with auto-suggest for our product, where as you're typing characters, it auto-completes the suggested word for you.
So I type gladiator, and I get 3 letters in, and I got gladiator, but I also have fight scene, are you not entertained, etc.
Exactly. You don't have to think too much about what you're doing. You can just tap a couple characters so that if you're in the rain, the phone's in one hand, you can get to that outcome much more quickly.
If a search engine doesn't have autocomplete now, I am so frustrated. It's very much like that Louis C.K. discussion about flying airplanes. Like, once you get one of those incremental, 20, 30% gains, when you don't get them, it becomes infuriating. It actually works against your product, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, autocomplete, in a sense, is almost table stakes to search engines.
Sure.
I think that's what Uber's doing. They're kind of making, let's call autocomplete for your destination, table stakes in the game. And then I think if you look at some of the other things they're doing, Uber pools, I think, are, from a personal standpoint, the area that I think could use the biggest speed improvement. And that the challenge is that if you take a pool, you're not quite sure when you're going to arrive. The estimated time they put there is certainly a useful step up, but because you're not quite sure how long you're going to be waiting for the other person, is the driver actually where they say they are? You're not sure about your your arrival time. So they're doing a lot of things to improve that. I think the self-driving car initiative essentially boils down to ultimately speed and cost. If they have a bunch of self-driving cars on the road, chances are that car can get to you faster, and chances are it can get you to your destination, in a faster period of time and a cheaper cost. So I think that at the margin, Uber is trying to eke out more and more gains around speed, so that in your head, you're always thinking about, okay, I know that I'm going to have to do less work with Uber. I'm going to have to type less characters. And if I'm outside your office sitting in the rain, I know that I don't have to type out the full address. I can just do a few taps, and then I'm going to get to my destination.
Okay, Brian, how do you feel about David's flywheel concept that 3 or 4 items going faster then will increase retention and joy and the stickiness of a product?
Yeah, so this is great. I think it's fantastic that the talk on speed was our fastest talk today, right? That was over like in a flash.
Yeah.
So definitely my happiness is way up there. You got my retention. I was thinking the whole time, Casey was nodding his head as David was going through his facts about, yep, I know that too. I'm just thinking about my own business and how to apply these things. And I think speed, I don't know that you can think of another thing besides speed that will actually give you the most bang for your buck. If you can just make everything faster or eliminate steps along the way, like the Uber example, right? If I have a 6-step thing to do, if you can start me on step 3 and then skip step 5,
sure,
and I can do that in 3 and I'm out.
Waze is doing that now.
Genius.
When I turn on Waze, I pull out of my driveway with Waze, and it says, "Are you going to?" Mm-hmm. And it actually not only tells you, "Are you going to CNBC or are you going to WeWork?" It counts down 7 seconds. If you don't say, it starts you on that route. So even the click is now taken out of it. We're just going to start sending you on that route. So Brian, here's my question for you. In your startup Clip episodes, which is doing great, and you're working really hard on it, if you could do one thing, hire Casey to get the landing pages done, hire Sue to get your newsroom, your group firing off, and just doing daily news hits, or David's group, you could have any one of these 3 executives come work with you for 6 months to solve these problems. David McIntosh's speed, Sue Kwan's newsroom, or Casey Winter's landing page and SEO. Rank them in order that you would like to do them, and then Casey, Sue, and David will take a pause on their startups and come work for you for 6 months each. No, but rank them just for you, because it will be different startup. How would you sort through this? Because this is one of the hardest things as a founder, is which one do I do next? You have limited resources. Right. So for you, with Clipisodes pre-launch, tell us.
Yep. No, I'll absolutely tell you, and I'll do it in reverse order. I'll tell you the one I'm
You're number 3.
Least likely to work with, and that's David. And specifically because I know it needs to go faster. I know I need to make it easier. I know I need to eliminate steps, and I'm already stressed out enough that my head would pop off if he was sitting there telling me, faster, eliminate steps, make it suck less.
You're just exhausted from the product death march at this point.
No, absolutely.
You need to get that product out the door.
There, correct. We're all there. I think we announced it 10 months ago. So so you're out.
Or you're 6 months from now.
No, well, correct, right? Yeah. And then speaking of 6 months, so Casey, your second one eliminated. The SEO stuff and the things around what we're doing, we're making videos, right? So our stuff is all about social and sharing. So the idea of landing pages or aggregating this stuff or having to tag these things to get text content is cute. But if you say that it pays off in 3 to 6 months, I gotta get any money before we last 6 months, right? We're a startup.
Got it.
So I think that's the second one off my list. Sue, I would say, and I was thinking about this during her talk, I think it's 1 in 1,000 or 1 in every 500 startups that has what I would call like a natural unicorn founder with PR in their DNA. And so, I'm bringing you up on this, sure. Right? So you're that kind of person. You're on CNBC every other week. You have this show. You have a platform. You have startups with 15,000 people coming to them, right? That's 1 in 1,000 startups.
Social media, books.
Books. Television show, right? Broadway.
Yeah,
absolutely,
Broadway,
right? The Broadway, correct. So nobody else has that. So I think having somebody who gets you to get those things done, who can sit with you for 10 minutes and draw a blog post out of you and get it on the news by 7 o'clock on camera,
oh my God,
is amazing. Plus, yum. She's making introductions for me already. It's I can't even mention it.
All right. So now, Sue, if you had to pick Casey or David to work on your startup Honor, in which order would you execute on it? You have 2 amazing experts here, one to do SEO for you and landing pages, one to make the product faster in 3 or 4 different ways. How would you execute? What order would you do it in? David or Casey?
What order?
What order? So who are you going to have come first and second, and why? The idea being we all have limited resources. You got to tackle a project. Would you have David come in and make 3 or 4 aspects of Honor 30, 40, 50% faster, let's say 35% faster? Or would you work with Casey to get the SEO going now Why and why?
Well,
And David
That's a
and
tough one.
Casey, you're going to answer
can
these
I
questions next.
not do PR and just bring them over?
I'm assuming your PR is done.
Okay.
You're going to pick one of the two to go next.
I think
Which one's next?
because the company I work at is a topic that's people still need to get educated on,
Uh-huh.
they need to come there and learn first before they actually engage, right? So I think we have to
You get
have
the
Casey
SEO dialed in.
first.
Great.
So we bring them in.
That
'cause
adds
it's-
speed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, but if you don't have that product, they'll leave, right? So it's kind of like a layered.
The leaky bucket.
These
Get
great
people
analogies.
there, and then the bucket has
Yeah.
a leak in it, and you lose them. Okay. Casey, you understand what I'm going to ask you next.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you go with Sue coming on to do your PR news war room, or you get David to make your next start? Let's say it was Pinterest, you were still at, to make it
Yeah.
3 different things 3 times faster.
Yeah, so I have the ability to cheat on this one because
Yes.
we've done similar work to what David did, and the results were fairly exponentially
So you would go with
great
David first.
as well. I would say the similar work we did to what David did, probably the most impactful thing Pinterest did last year to grow
Really?
the business. So
Just getting faster.
Yeah, so I have the data to prove how valuable that is, and
Great.
there's really nothing at the company you could prioritize higher than that, given that I know how.
Because they're at
it-
scale already. So what we're seeing here is when you're not at scale, the PR is super important. But down the road, SEO becomes important. And obviously, when you have a bunch of people using the product, you can get the impact of the speed.
Yeah, and Brian was talking about just reduction in friction, and we've done that work to take a 6-step sign-up flow to 3 steps, and the impact on that is very demonstrative down the line. And as David was talking about, the kind of exponential long-term impact of those sorts of changes is, you get an increase in conversion rate from their site being faster, and that's 5%, or in the case of Pinterest when we did it, it was greater than that. You don't just get that with the people you drive today. You get that with the people you drive tomorrow and then years down the road. And if you nail that, it's just really hard to have anything else have as much impact.
Okay. Brian, an amazing job. Well done.
Thanks.
3 great speakers. Everybody can follow Casey Winters at, what's your website?
CaseyAccidental.com.
Casey Accidental. So
Yes.
.com if you accidentally stumble upon his website. Sue, what's the best place to find Sue Kwan?
You can reach me on my cell phone and my email are everywhere on every release. So I
Well,
don't.
what about Twitter? You have a Twitter? You have
Yeah,
a Facebook? What's
but
your Twitter? You don't check it?
I don't really have that brand.
All right, so Google Sue Kwan, you get her LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And David, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? You're at Tenor. How do people visit Tenor?
Tenor.co or .com, either works.
Okay.
But
Tenor.
yep,
And you're on the Twitter or
yep.
Facebook?
At D Macintosh.
At D Macintosh. My God, when the Macintosh came out, were you a computer nerd when you were a kid?
So as a kid, I grew up in Chicago. Every kid asked me if I owned Apple.
And you had a Windows PC.
They all thought I had a
Did you have a PC Junior like I did?
at home, I did have a PC. Yeah,
You had a PC.
yeah.
So even more bullying and did people beat you up over this
No
issue?
bullying. They thought I was a multi-billionaire for owning Apple
got
because
it.
of Macintosh and the
Amazing.
computer. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, listen, Brian Alvey, once again, amazing job. Everybody check out Clipisodes.
Clipisode with no S,
No
.co.
S.
Or
Clipisode.co.
at Clipisode on Twitter.
At Clipisode on Twitter and clipisode.co. The COs are doing
It's a
great.
thing to do, exactly.
It is the thing to do now that the .coms are all broken up. And we will see all of you next time on This Week in Startups. Don't forget, Launch Festival the first week in April. Lots of exciting things going on there, including the big announcement coming February 1st of the Syndicate. Stay tuned for the big announcement February 1st.
Our iTunes review of the week is from Boggs NYC. Jason brings to bear his experience as an entrepreneur and investor to deliver an insightful, compelling, timely, and timeless look at the startup ecosystem.